hands with you. Come on, come on, come on. I know you're sleeping now. You gotta wake up small, yeah? Okay, let's go. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. So much. I said they lie. The people fool us, oh. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They can lie, they can steal, they will not go. I said we tired with their lies. We tired with their promises that led us to all our damages. We tired with their speech they preach indeed, and now unique they deceive us. The thing we saw, it frustrates us. So why can't you lie? Why can't you steal? Why can't you allow the citizens to be? You see, we just tell you that's why we voted you. But you fool us, you screw us, you use us and later on abuse us. So why? The government should lie. Why? But that's the question that we ask. The people fool us. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They betray us so much. I said they lie. The people fool us, oh. The people lie to us. The government betray us. They can lie, they can steal, they will not to corrupt. No one to trust. My people, no one to hope on. Nobody. My hope that I have been broken. I'm telling you, brother. So where are the schools? Where are the roads? Where are the jobs that they say they could afford? But they're too selfish. The people tired with their rhetoric. People tired. They tired.
Good afternoon. Well, it's still morning to you, George. Good morning to you. George, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Well, I can't hear you. Hold on.
Oh, man. Can you hear me better?
Oh, that's kind of weird. Hold on.
We should get for some music. Well, good afternoon to some, good morning to some, and for some it's approaching evening. So we'll say hi to you. We are on the road. So I don't even know what the picture is that's in the background, but we are here. It's exciting to be alive. With all the stuff that's happening, the heat wave, I don't know whether there's a heat where you are, but we're on our way to Europe. And yesterday was a record-breaking day in France in terms of heat. And that's where we are headed to. So we don't know what we'll experience when we get there. But any kind of time you can travel and go somewhere different is a good thing. So I'm trying to see what comments we have here. We don't have any comments, but I just hope you all can hear me. George is having a little bit of technical difficulties. He should be on soon. A lot of things happening, but our focus is still about how we really can reimagine this country we want. Restart doing things the right way, like some of the things that have been done that don't seem to benefit the people, don't seem to benefit the country. So we have to look at those things. And at this stage, the best we can do is probably make suggestions to see how they can change, whether they will consider some of those thoughts But a lot of times there's now a consideration for that. So when George come on, two of the things we would like to touch on today will be the $30 million issue. $30 million. $30 million have been placed into the recast budget. And the issue somebody just gave me a tip. That's what I like about my man. I won't call his name. But for our Facebook broadcast, we just want to tell Facebook that we don't own any copyrights to any of the songs played. So please don't punish us, we beg you. Thanks, LK. Appreciate it. I used to do that when I used to go live. I forgot I'm going live on Facebook too. I still need to respect Facebook. So yeah, thank you. On Facebook, we don't own any rights, okay? Any copyrights to those songs that we'll be playing. So don't flog us, don't sanction us, don't do anything negative to us. Yeah, so for all of those who are on today, when I'm doing the stream out here, I don't see who's on. And then sometimes when people make comments from Facebook or something, just come in as Facebook user. Sometimes it comes with the name, but a lot of times it comes as Facebook users. So I don't really know who's commenting or who's not commenting until I go back later on to check it out. But we really do appreciate those who watch us. We know a lot of times the time is not convenient for many people, but they do catch up later on with the YouTube clip. And we are getting a lot of feedback on, some of the learning that take place when people watch the show, some of the information that they get that they probably don't get in other places. So we really appreciate that feedback. We appreciate the support. Our man George is having some technical difficulties. But like I said, the two things that we primarily want to talk about today are the $30 million in the recast budget. So, and the second issue is this whole lobbying thing and the additional expenses for lobbying that the government of Liberia is going through. And, people have had different viewpoints about that. I know just today there was another article out about the whole lobbying situation. So we'll look at that too and see, what your thoughts are. But we'll also share our thoughts on it as well, because all of that is very important to how we operate as a country. How those things affect us. Are we in line with our legislature in terms of what the Constitution says about what their responsibilities are when it comes to, funding, when it comes to approving funds for the budget. So I want to believe that was George. Let me add him to the stream. Have you solved the problem?
Yeah, so I think so. You can hear me, right?
Definitely, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Okay, wonderful. Folks, that's technology for you. Sometimes it acts up. Sometimes we don't know what we're doing, but the fellow on the other side, he knows what he's doing when it comes to this stuff. So I'm not questioning. I'm questioning the computer. I'm questioning the sound, the audio, the sound card, whatever else. So how you doing, man?
I'm doing okay. What's going on with you?
Man, my flight got canceled last night. I don't know whether because airplane tires were melting in France or what.
It's a mess over there, man. I was reading today that the people who were on the train, the trains had to slow down ever so often because the tracks were overheating.
Wow.
In London. Yep.
Wow.
So
that's good. That probably go with my possibility. But I hear the trains are packed, so I may not be able to go to Amsterdam.
No, you may not be. I mean, if you're going to Amsterdam, you should be making a reservation now.
We tried before. Natalie tried before, and like everything was booked up. So yeah, so tonight we'll be flying out to France, to Paris,
Okay.
and probably take a day on London because probably Paris will have more fun in Paris than in London. So
You definitely. Well, yeah. Unless your kids like Harry Potter and stuff like that.
No, they're not
Harry
even
Potter.
with us.
Okay, it's just the two of you.
Me, Natalie, and her mom.
Okay.
And then we'll meet my niece and her mom in Paris.
Okay.
So it's a little family thing with some of the family members.
I mean, at the end of the day, it's like, how long do you want to spend in Paris?
Well, you can 20th. We got 11 more days because we won't come back on the 1st. So we got
you guys have done the Rome thing, right?
That's for another time. We're not doing Rome this time. I gotta go to Italy on a special.
Okay, but what I'm saying is, 2 days in each of these places. These places, and the thing about it is, they're not that far apart.
No, they're not.
They're maybe 4 or 6 hours apart by train, and the trains are extremely comfortable. So it's like.
So you know what? Maybe we'll find whatever train we can get on to go whatever place that's available.
Go wherever you want to go. I know when I went there, when we went to Amsterdam, and then I decided one day, I wanted to go to The Hague.
Wow.
So I could see where they're going to lock Prince Johnson up, right?
No. We won't get some jobs. We won't do Prince Johnson right in Liberia.
Okay. Well, then you can go to The Hague and visit Charles Taylor.
Is Charles Taylor somewhere in London or somewhere in England?
Yes, he is.
Maybe I will.
I think The Hague is like an hour from downtown Amsterdam by train. Wow. And they have a whole, entertainment district there and everything.
Wow.
So that's kind of neat.
So we got 2 potential topics online today. The $30 million, and then the whole situation with how should I call it? The lobbying thing, so we can start with that. In general, what are your thoughts on lobbying?
Well, again, one of the things we see with these Liberian governments is that whenever we are approaching elections, people the government seem to get anxious and they start spending government money on lobbying. All right, because it looks like now the government wants to reach out to US politicians to say, hey, look at all the stuff we're doing. And apparently paying Bakari Sellers $400,000 was not enough.
I mean, I'm still yet to see what he accomplished based on his terms of reference as it related to the entire bicentennial and access to US people. I don't know. I don't know what it benefited the government of Liberia. So, lobbying is suspect. And usually when they get into these contracts, again, due to lack of transparency and lack of accountability, they don't clearly tell us what are the expected, results. How do we measure that engagement in terms of it benefits to the people of Liberia?
At the end of the day, the way I see this whole lobbying effort, and I've always seen it that way, is just a way for the government of Liberia to try to convince the American authorities that they're doing what they're supposed to do as you get closer to an election. This is all about the elections. It's not about anything else.
So in some instances, for some countries that have defined foreign policy, lobbying is about getting those results, getting specific, increments in whatever bilateral, multilateral relationships that are providing, some kind of funding. Let's say they really want to focus on the electricity, and let's say something like the.
Okay, but listen, at the end of the day, Liberia is a beggar nation. Okay,
fact.
Liberia is a beggar nation. So we depend on the EU, the US They already look when these of us sit down every year. They're like, what are we going to give Liberia? That's a foregone conclusion.
That it will give something.
Okay, right. Our deficits are so glaring that we don't need somebody to lobby them to say we need electricity. Okay, they have enough people on the ground. You follow what I'm saying?
And that's my point.
So the point here is the money that they're paying to lobby is to reach American policymakers beyond the reports they're getting from the embassy.
But what can they tell them so differently, especially a rural government that's not operating?
It's about connections. It's about friendships. So these lobbyists, they're tight with these congressmen.
Right. But can they really, as for a country like Liberia, where maybe somebody like Chris Smith, who's like a ranking member in there, has some very negative perceptions about in terms of corruption, accountability, and transparency, and war crimes implementation. Can, some lobbyists convince a man like that to think differently, to look differently at Liberia?
They're just trying to get through the election. That's all they're trying to do.
Okay. So for me, I think it's a waste of money. I think it's nearly like $3 million that they are spending on lobbyists, to date, which could help with schools in Riverside, even Monserrate County, which could do a lot. And there's just like no accountability, no performance management, no clear showing of results and impact, from this government. And it's not just this government. It has been, something that has happened before. So, as much as we want this change, those are some of the factors that definitely have to be clear, that any new government coming in will be so much more accountable to the people from a reporting perspective. And again, that ties in with data like we talk about. You can't report where you can't count, where you can't track.
Exactly.
So it's really, really a tough thing. And then when you don't have the reporting infrastructure, you don't have the web presence, even for like all ministries to be reporting properly. Jesus Christ. George, go ahead.
It goes back to the fact that the government is disorganized. Okay, it goes back to the fact that the government is disorganized. Because at the end of the day, if you go to Canada, like you're in Canada, as a matter of fact, even if you go to Rwanda, if you go to the Rwanda government website, you will see that all their websites look the same.
Right.
Okay. And so what that tells you is that they're using a single platform that they've standardized on. So they have now their platform designers, and then they have basically content managers within each ministry. And the content managers for each ministry are responsible to upload the content that's pertinent to that ministry.
All right.
Okay. So it's about organization.
And it's also about corruption, because if they could consolidate and scale what,
okay, so let's roll.
And communication is.
No, but let's roll this back. One of the things that we have to be able to understand is what happened in Liberia. Hey, can you share this link in our group?
Which one?
This link that we're on. This is in this tech policy group.
Which link? The one you put in?
The one we're on now. This broadcast link. Share it there.
Oh, okay.
So they can watch if they want to. So one of the things that we need to understand is how Liberia came to where it is right now. Okay. And the reason it came to where it is right now has its genesis in the squabble between Charles Taylor and Samuel Doe.
The squabble, meaning?
Yes. Okay,
From the
so
time
Charles
he was
Taylor,
at GSA?
Charles Taylor was the Director General of GSA.
Right.
Okay? And GSA was responsible for procurement across the government.
Right.
Okay? And, you know, Charles Taylor was stealing from the government.
He was. Man, I
Okay?
wrote.
And so when the Dole government put out an arrest warrant for him, you know, that's basically led to us going towards the Civil War. When Charles Taylor then became president of Liberia,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things that they decided to do was to decentralize procurement. So it wasn't where they said, for all the government agencies, we need 5,000 chairs. Instead, it became each government agency will buy the chairs it needs. It will budget for the chairs it needs. And the same holds true for technology.
So that started from Charles Taylor's government, right?
My point is that it was the decentralization of the GSA. Basically, what is the function of GSA right now? It's not, they are not
to mine and monitor cars.
Right. They are not the central procurement organization in the government anymore.
No.
So as long as you don't have that central procurement agency, you can't consolidate the things you buy. Let's go back to the fact that within the GSA, there is the Bureau of Data Processing.
Is that within GSA?
It is within GSA, yes.
By law.
By law, it's within GSA.
I thought data processing was a separate entity.
No, it's not a separate entity. It is post a link in this place, man. What were you doing?
I mean, just go ahead. I'll post it in the group.
No, it's not a separate entity. It's a subsection of GSA. Okay. Now, what happened was, I was in Liberia right after Ellen's first inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
And it was Willard Russell who called me and actually gave me the law about the Bureau of Data Processing. He's like, what is it? What is it supposed to do? And
I'm gonna start reading comments and focus on the show.
and I told him, you know, this is the IT department of the government. But they had decided that the government agency was going to buy its own computers. Every government agency was going to purchase its own website services. You follow what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because there was no central direction. The reason I wrote a letter to the president was when they brought in some foreign people to help craft Liberia's telecommunications policy.
Right.
Well, they didn't know that this bureau actually existed. So they went ahead and said, oh, you know what? We'll put the IT infrastructure under Post and Telecom. And we'll put the CIO in that agency. And I said, but that already exists. So my suggestion was that they take the Bureau of Data Processing and move it to the office of the president until they could pass a law for it to exist as a standalone agency. Because I don't believe that the CIO of the country needs to be a deputy minister in the Ministry of Post and Telecom.
Or under GSA.
Or under GSA, correct. Okay, so it needs to be the Ministry of Technology. But now when you have the Ministry of Technology, what you can then do is you can standardize across the government.
Well, most countries today do have a technology czar. I mean,
yeah, but they do. But we're talking about Liberia.
No, but I'm just saying that shows our inability to really rise up to the level of what's current, what's happening, what makes the difference. We don't do that.
Yeah. So, again, as we talk about these things, one of the things we have to remember is because we don't have that central organizing bureaucracy, this is why we don't have any central structured IT policy. Every agency does its own thing. I mean, because you would even standardize on things, Isaac, like what type of routers you would use at every agency.
Well, question, what kind of technology stack you would use? I mean, there's just so many things you can standardize that, it helps you with cost, it helps you with efficiency, it helps transferability in staff that they coming from
exactly
next. All of those things factor into having some level of standard.
Where it is possible, the government would standardize on a specific database structure or a database tool. It would standardize on specific types of tools, but across all the agencies. So what we really have now is every agency. I'll give you an example. Ministry of Justice. The Ministry of Justice, with regards to bureaus, has the most number of bureaus in existence.
Well, but we all question because they got what?
They got prisons. They got fire. NBI or whatever so all of those agencies you would want to have kind of like under the umbrella of the Ministry of Justice website.
That's what it's supposed to be.
But instead, all of them are doing their own thing.
And that's why sometimes the budget doesn't get far.
There's no central control. So I will give you an example. When we had the Ebola crisis, right? The Ministry of Health contracted with an individual to provide them with those services, and he exceeded the limit, the data limit.
Right.
And the website went down after something like 15 days.
Wow.
Okay. Yeah. Now, but that's because we don't have a central organizing principle.
And there's no commitment to do it because everybody has their own little silo or kingdom or fiefdom, and they want to run things the way they want to run things. So until we can get a leadership that wants to streamline government, wants to make sure that, yes, like John Boone is saying, hey, John, thank you for posting that stuff, that decentralization is not a bad idea, but decentralization more from a governance, not from a procurement point, because everybody procure their own thing. You lose the possibility of, standards, discount, conformity and all of that. So there's just so many things that need to change when we come to that. But just to go back to the whole issue we're talking about with regards to the lobbyists, I really believe that the people of Liberia should look at these lobbying relationships, because there's even though based on FARA, the Foreign Agent Reporting agency that captures all this information and requires these agents that represent foreign governments to register with them. So there's some level of transparency there, but who knows what else happens in the background in terms of building these relationships. So it makes it, how should I say, kind of difficult for the people of Liberia to really understand what's going on in the relationship, what are the benefits for them, what tangibles have this government derived from spending all this money, more than $3 million on lobbyists. So the next topic, George, is the recast budget, where this whole issue of $30 million was received from HPX, which is like a major mining company that also wants access to the railway and some other benefits in Liberia that ArcelorMittal probably intended to monopolize. So supposedly they have a framework agreement with the government of Liberia, and based on that framework was what they paid the government $30 million. Back probably in March, there was an article from Front Page Africa where they have paid $7 million already to the government of Liberia. And I guess there was no sting about it because it was now a situation where, you know, our lawmakers were like really conscious of or thought there was a problem. But right now, with the $30 million in the recast budget, the lawmakers, some of them anyway, are saying there was no ratification of a relationship with HPX for them to be giving us $30 million. So on what ground would they be paying us $30 million? And that has not been fully explained. Two, you know, the Minister of Finance was called to the legislature, and supposedly the explanation was if he hadn't taken the money, they would not have been able to pay people. So that's
not the reason he took it.
Okay. George, leave the comments. We'll come to the comment. We have a special section for you to address every comment over there. So what do you think is the reason he took it?
Because they needed the money.
But that's what he's saying. He said they needed the money. You can't just, okay, they needed the money for the people or they needed the money.
So it was in violation. So put it to you this way. It was a procedural and it was in violation of the law. I'm sure there's a law that was violated there somewhere.
I mean, the Constitution, I think Article 17, somewhere in there where the legislature is responsible, you know, to approve all these different loans and funding.
Exactly.
So you can't just get money in concessions. You can't just get money.
Okay, so the question is, you know, at the end of the day, Mittal also has a general counsel.
Yeah, they both.
Okay. They need to call the general counsel from Mittal and let him explain. Because when you are the general counsel for Mittal in Liberia, the assumption should be that you are familiar with the laws of Liberia.
And only Liberians can practice law in Liberia.
Exactly. So that person has to be a Liberian. So under what authority did he believe or advise his clients that it was okay, right, to give them the money?
Well, I don't know who it's actually APX that gave the money, because the fear was the agreement was with Mittal was they were now going to actually come up with their $25 million that it was supposed to give in this budget year. So they were using now the HPX fund to replace that Mittal Steel budget. Then they went and got an additional financing. And again, I don't know whether the legislature approved that additional $50 million from the World Bank. I believe from the IMF, they got an additional $50 million from the IMF. But then
but how much is this costing us?
And that was not transparent. That's not what revealed by this government in terms of the debt burden that it carries, and in terms of what is the cost of these loans, what is the transaction cost to carry these things, and how far down the road. You know, they should have something like a 100-year, layout.
Well, at a minimum, you want to have a 3-year plan.
No, most of the things, 10, 15 years down the road. Most of these concessions.
I understand that.
Loans, they're down the road.
I understand that. But you want to have a 3-year plan, you want to have a 5-year plan, you want to have a 10-year plan. Okay, and you have specific metrics that you will use. But I mean,
what metric have you seen from this government?
But again, we come back to the whole problem of a lack of organization in the government. Corruption thrives in chaos.
Fact.
Okay, that's the long and short of it. And some of these things that we see as chaos, they are not happenstance.
For George, I gotta stop for you to address my picking every purpose.
What do you say?
You say, what kind of opulent background behind George?
That's my background. That's my swimming pool. He got a problem with that?
He probably hasn't seen any of the different panelists on with their own swimming pool in the background. So maybe
But go to at least I'm in America. Go to Akara's grave. Go look at his house. He right there where you're in Liberia.
you on a little floating thing one time with
Right. I got the picture. I will send it to you.
So
Yeah.
Eric, you got your answer. No, but George, continue. Sorry, it was just funny to me that you were
No,
asking.
my point is the chaos that we see in Liberia, we have to remember that these are not lightning strikes. These are not issues of chance. Corruption thrives in chaos. And the more chaotic things are, the more opportunities there are for people to do things that I mean, at this point, you can't even keep up with what's going on.
Yes, there's too many balls being juggled. There's nobody really paying attention. I know one or two organizations, NAMO, that maybe Centile on the ground, are trying to monitor some of the economic activities, but you don't have a clear picture of what's going on and who's monitoring and how they're protecting, the interests of the Liberian people. So that's difficult. And again, we only have one person in the opposition who tries to, really hold the government feet to the fire. And
who's that?
Mr. Cummings. Beyond that, most other opposition leaders, and recently Tewan Gonglo being coming with the broom, talking a little bit, but Tewan has not been able to really speak to specifics and look at it.
And at the end of the day, you look at all of the people who are standard Liberian politicians. These are all people who worked in the same system before and did nothing to improve it.
Fact.
Okay.
So that's why the message is.
But wasn't Gonglo Solicitor General?
He was.
So at the end of the day, when somebody like Gonglo is speaking, you expect him to speak within his area of expertise. As a lawyer who is well versed in the Constitution and these concession laws. For Gonglo to come and say, that corruption that they play, we must sweep it out. And no, that's not enough.
No, it's not.
You have specific expertise.
And that's a lot of what's missing, that specificity about each of these different things, clearly what the issue are, what the leakages are based on that particular issue.
Right.
Let Gonglo be a solution to it. They don't.
Yeah, let Gonglo tell us which law was broken and what recourse people have to deal with it. That's his area. And to just speak in these vague generalities about that's corruption, that's the cry of the regular person on the street.
And that expectation has not been realized a lot for most of our politicians to really be specific to the issues and for tangible solutions. And I think that's where Mr. Cummings can really set himself apart, because he's able to articulate his vision. He's able to, be specific on so many issues. He just has to pound this pavement more.
So I'm looking at John Boone's.
No, we get to the whole elections thing. Let's not divert.
No, John Boone is saying something about decentralization, and that is not a bad idea.
Right, to go back to the previous topic.
And I'm trying to find out, what does decentralization mean to Liberians?
Well, there's different aspects of decentralization, right? We can look at local government, decentralizing in terms of empowering local governments from both an administrative standpoint and an economic or financial standpoint, right? So tax collection, is that decentralized in Liberia, where the municipal taxes are really being collected by people? I doubt it. Okay. There's the whole, national. I mean, people from in the counties got to come to Monrovia sometimes to handle their taxes. That function should be decentralized. So services can be decentralized.
Listen, here's the thing, Isaac. We need to stop dancing around the bush. The current political subdivision structure doesn't work.
But we all agree on that. It doesn't work.
The vast majority of the political subdivisions, especially the southeastern counties, they're not viable counties. They simply are not.
Yeah, but it takes a lot.
I mean, no. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. So listen, if we're going to change this country, we have to be really serious about it.
That's the discussion we're having now. That's why we got to tell people why it's not viable or it's not realistic for a county that got 10, 15, 20,000 people or no economic activity.
They have no economic activity.
Some kind of administrative district or jurisdiction of the country.
There are a couple of areas we can look at. The first thing, one of the things we can look at is we can look at the reorganization of the political subdivisions. All right, that's one. The next thing we can look at is we can look at funding municipalities through sales and property taxes.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be something carved out for this.
There has to be something, because here's the issue you run into. You understand that Monrovia is the seat of government. But right now, the Monrovia City Council gets its entire budget from the national budget.
But there's streams of revenue that Monrovia City Council can create for itself.
Well, it can't, because the law doesn't allow it to do that.
No, the city law, they do have a whole...
Okay, so Isaac, let me ask you this. What happens when you have to deal with Sanicole? What happens when you got to deal with Vonjama? What happens when you got to deal with Banga? What happens when you got to deal with Hopper?
All cities you have that. The problem is it's not clear, and sometimes people who hold these positions don't even understand.
Okay, but Isaac, shouldn't we talk about having, first of all, creating a uniformed property tax structure, a law, where we can identify properties and we can tax them accordingly. And depending on which county your property is in, a portion of the property taxes that you pay every year will go to the county or the municipality for schools. I mean, for services that you need.
George, that's simplistic. I totally agree. Unfortunately, everything just comes in one big pot.
Right. So my thing is,
I'm not even sure how many counties or what kind of property tax come out of the counties.
Exactly. So here's my thing. When we talk about decentralization, we can talk about the reorganization of the political districts or districts, right. But we also have to talk about the economic viability of every county and every municipality. Okay, so for example, let's take Nimba. How much money is, or let's just take, say, the railroad that Mittal is going to run from Nimba to Buchanan.
From Guinea all the way to Buchanan, yeah. Let's go.
That railroad goes through two counties.
Right.
Okay. So that's the use of their land. That's the use of their resources.
And to a large extent, based on
all of that money is going to the central
So they do have the government. They do have the county development fund and the county social development fund where
they get the money to the senators and they divide it around.
I was just talking to somebody about Russell last night. They don't have a county city. They call it county city where they decide what to do with the money.
But that's not how it works.
That's not how it works.
That's not how it's supposed to work.
And then the superintendent, who should be like a governor in each of these counties, basically is kind of neutered in terms of what they can do.
Correct. So we have to talk about.
Jaja is saying, yeah, we need to go back to the drawing board. We really need to.
That's what I was looking for.
No.
We have to go back because the structure as it exists. Put it to you this way: what we have was fine when we had 1.5 million people.
And when we have probably 90% of people not aware of anything and everybody thinking the same.
Correct. Right now, we have almost 5 billion people. Okay. By 2030, we will have close to 10 million people. Those are the projections. So the question becomes, how do we begin to structure to restructure our economy with regards to, tax revenue that can support the municipalities?
And that thought is not on the radar. You look in all of these documents, you don't find them. These Agenda for
And so-
Transformation, the PAPD and stuff, even the projection in terms of being able to provide services for the population growth is not really reflected.
What we have is people in Liberia take what is existing and they say, we're just going to keep doing the same thing.
And I think it's pure laziness.
My position is those things don't work. Let's think outside the box as to how we can change this country. And the fact of the matter is, it won't take that much or that long to do it.
All right, so I think we should invite Eric on. Eric said government is more complex than the way George is trying to simplify it. So,
okay,
Eric,
let Eric
what is
come
the
on.
complexity of government that's so difficult? What is it?
Yeah, I will wait for him to tell me.
I'll come and put this link in your inbox area. I'll show you on WhatsApp. Okay, so you can come on, because people always like to say this thing, like it's so complex, it's so complex. What is complex that you cannot change? How other countries can get the government to work that we in Liberia cannot get our government to work effectively? And that's the question most people who, parrot the idea that there's such complexity around things, cannot change what's going on, cannot come to government and look at what has happened or what been happening, or even why they're there, to say, oh, but now we see why this thing is not working. Let's try to fix it this way. Let's try to fix it that way. You really never see a complete retooling of government. It's like people come, they see the work that's required, or sometimes they don't even have the ability to analyze the system and see how they can transform it into something more functional. They don't do that. So it makes it very, very difficult for us as a people to benefit from the work that government is supposed to be doing, because government never does the work it is supposed to do. Yeah, I mean, I agree, leadership is key, leadership at the top. And that leadership has to be visionary. That leadership has to understand all the different elements and how they tie in together. Again, John, that's one of the reasons why I truly respect Mr. Cummings, and I really expect him to be.
So, but I'm waiting for Eric to tell us about this complexity that is in government.
Eric, tell us what's complex about government. Seriously. You can come on the show. I'll send you the link. You can join the show, and explain to the people and try to educate us what is so complex.
And what is so complex that is so impossible that is impossible for us to do.
He won't come, but
so basically, I think the issue that I was talking about was the ability to levy real estate taxes,
right?
To levy consumer taxes. Guess what you need to do that, Eric? You need technology.
You need a system.
You need systems to do that. Okay.
The man say he's pregnant. He having bed rest.
Okay. There are 325 million people in the United States. If you go to your local 7-Eleven and you buy a Snickers bar, bar for $1. Of that $1, when they tell you it costs $1.08, that 8 cents that you're paying, a part of it is going to go to your city, a part of it is going to go to your state. So again, Eric, every problem that Liberia faces has been solved somewhere before.
Somewhere, multiple places.
Okay, we are not unique. Okay, because for somebody to suggest that would be to suggest that we are unique in our stupidity. Because that would mean we are unable to learn.
So I've always
somebody has solved those problems before. The Ghanaians are doing it. The Rwandans are doing it. Only Liberia say it's too complicated for us to do. Why?
No, but a lot of times they say that I don't know what we can do it, yo. George, again,
Right.
why do we want to be so unique that we feel our problem can be solved? Is it that most Liberians don't want to think, don't want to work? Why do we cap out with that excuse?
It's the low IQ thing.
Oh shit! Excuse me.
It's the low IQ thing.
It's 67 thing, eh?
Isaac, intelligence. Let me look. Intelligence is the ability not only to absorb information, but to formulate new constructs from the information you absorb.
Well, question because what is it? Just absorb information so people can memorize.
It is also the ability to discriminate between things that look alike but are not actually alike. Okay, so let me give you an example. Let's say there's an accident.
Yep.
And somebody's hit by a car. And you ask a witness to describe the car. The witness can use broad things like, oh, our one big car that hit them. Or they can say it was a pickup. It was a convertible. It was they can be specific in their description. And that specificity is a result of them knowing the difference between the different types of cars. That's one. The second reason we are not successful is because of something learning psychologists call learned helplessness. Okay? And here's how learned helplessness works. If an organism, say in this case, we're talking about a mouse or a rat. If an organism is subjected to what is considered an unpleasant stimuli, and there's nothing that the organism can do to stop that. A lot of times in the lab, you would train the animal to push a button to get some result. It will either push the button to get food, it will push it to get water, or it will push it to stop a stimulus from happening.
Right.
So let's say you're subjecting the animal to electric shocks, and you train the animal to push a button to stop the electric shocks, and all of a sudden, you turn that button off, so it doesn't matter what the animal does. Nothing cuts it off. The animal then develops what is called learned helplessness, meaning this thing has happened so many times, there's just nothing we can do about it.
Can't do about anything about it. True.
Okay, and so we get people now like Eric saying, it's too complex for us. We can't do anything about it. But in the very place that Eric lives, everything he does has a relationship to government and government's function. And only in Liberia, we're saying that is unattainable. But then there's no point in governing.
Because you can't do anything about it. You can't change it. So
right. The system is just going to stay the same.
Maybe that's what speaks to why people want to come, because they feel they don't have to do any work. Just try and get rich from whatever that's there.
Right. And listen, if, and some of you would take this the wrong way, and this is what I've said about.
But if you know somebody will take it the wrong way, then don't say it.
No, I'm going to say it. This is my problem with the progressives. They left no systems that improved on what they meant.
They will argue they never owned the country, but
you were still in policy positions.
You were insignificant, critical.
You were insignificant policy positions.
They didn't change.
And you presented nothing that changed the country.
A lot of those people never worked in any situation. They went to school, they came back, they met a system that was there. They didn't know how to change it. As much as maybe some of them really wanted to change it, they didn't know how to change it. So we still have whatever we have from before. But Omar's point is right, that it comes down to systems. Omar said he agreed with us, but it's system. But Omar, that's what we have been saying consistently.
That's what we've been saying consistently.
We need systems, we need regulations, we need enforcement. All of these things matter. And sometimes our people are just sensitive, but they will take it personal. And
right.
we can't let personal things come when it comes to country and government. It just should not be a factor that's important.
The computers we use in Liberia are not different from the computers they use in London. They're not different from the computers they use in Paris. You know why? You know the only difference? It's the people who are using them. Because those systems, they can design the same system in Paris and bring it to Liberia. And we will figure out a way so that it doesn't work.
But Jaja, that's why we are doing this show. And we're trying to get on the air in Liberia to conscientize people, to let them know that the state they're in, they don't have to be in it. Can you tell me that the people in Rivers, in their mind, they believe that they're not even sort of hard light, that they sort of always people in the bush, or some kind of what they call it, some kind of outhouse? I mean, is that what's ingrained in them? That has to change. They have to know the natural resources that exist in Rivers, that they need to be able to use their voice for those resources somehow to benefit them. It shouldn't just be extracted. All the logs taken out of Rivers now, one big town sawmill or furniture or quality furniture shop.
For internal consumption.
Yes.
For our internal consumption. And let me just say this, okay? So I tend to think of myself as a futurist, okay? And for those of you who don't know what a futurist is a person who kind of looks far into the future and tries to understand either the things that will happen or how we can change our development. Now, I will tell you this. One of the problems that Africa faces across the board is a housing problem. Okay? It is not possible to build sufficient housing in Liberia building concrete houses. It's just not possible. Sand is not a renewable resource.
And no Chinese people taking our sand over there too.
But so now some people say, oh my man, guess what? The weather in Louisiana and the weather in Florida is no different from the weather in Liberia.
Well, we definitely can use new building technologies. Even
it's
right
not.
Now, some people are using those bricks.
But wood frame is one thing that you can use because you can replant trees. But here's the other thing. You can't build wood frame houses in a low security area. You follow what I'm saying? So
you can't even build single house in a low security area. You gotta put fence around it. But what you say about the fence, a fence is only as high as what?
A ladder. Okay? The only thing it takes to get over a 10-foot fence is an 11-foot ladder.
That's it.
Okay? So at the end of the day, what I'm saying is what we need is to take a more holistic approach. Okay? Let me tell you, when I worked at Boeing, the technology department had a group called Emerging Technologies. And what we did, they brought members from every team. But what we looked at was not what we were doing now in terms of our technology stack.
Right.
What's coming in 2 or 3 years? How will we need to adjust the tools that we're using for the technologies that are on the horizon? And the type of leadership that Liberia needs is we need to both be able to put out the fires, but we also need to be able to look at where we're going to be. Because listen, it's 2022. In 8 years, your population will double. Okay? And I saw Country Devil the other day talking about Monrovia. And I'm saying, listen, it's time to give up on Monrovia.
We need a new capital, man.
But it's not even that we need a new capital. Isaac, if I were in charge, I would cut off all building permits in Monrovia. Because when you build in Monrovia, people will come there.
And that's what that message, we don't seem to understand it. The same way if you build in Zekepa, people will come there, especially if you build and create the environment that opportunities exist there, the same as in any county. But the obsession with Monrovia is that people don't want to work because it's just what it is. They can build a zing round, they can do anything small.
Well, I don't know it's so much. I don't know it's so much that they don't want to work as to or as it is. That's where the opportunity to get scraps are.
No, I'm not talking about the residents or the citizens. I'm talking about the people who make the big decisions and got to do the heavy lifting and the work to create a new city, to migrate services, to do all of these different things. Those are the people I'm talking about. The layman, I believe the Liberian man wants to work, get a basic job that he can get his food.
So we have to start thinking, before we go and spend additional money on major Wait. This Tokba Kwai man is going to tell me that you cannot build wood frame homes in high humidity environment. Have you ever been to Louisiana? Have you ever been to the bayou? It's a swamp. Have you ever been to South Florida? It's a swamp. It is literally a swamp, like a swamp in Liberia. So you obviously don't know what you're talking about. Okay? You treat the lumber.
So what's the limitations on treated lumber? That's why
exactly. As a matter of fact, let me tell you why you can't build wood frame houses in Liberia. Because the African snail is eating the people's house in Florida.
Who cares African snail there? No, but George.
No, I'm serious. I'm not kidding. Really? There's a problem with the giant African snails in Florida. They eat the calcium from the stucco on the outside of the house. And now an entire county has decided that they need to eradicate them.
We need to tell Brenda Brown or send some people over there.
Because I told them they just need to call Baguio people, man. They just send them down there.
But George, they got some wooden houses that were built 100 years ago in Liberia that are still standing today.
Omar is just saying it. The houses in Carisburg.
Go to most of the
My grandfather's house on Benson Street. On 21 Benson Street.
And what about right now, a lot of people are mixing all these plastic bags with sand. Okay, even though you say sand, we should move away from sand, but they're mixing that with sand and building like serious concrete or concrete like tiles or blocks that people can use to build. Even the mud that we have that's abundant in Liberia, the clay can be used for building. So it's not that we have to go with cement. It's not that we have to go with cement blocks. But it's about thinking on how can we, house our people? What is the real solution?
So when you look at the type of prime development, right, that would bring, hotels and stuff like that. Our best land in Monrovia, for example, is all slum. West Point, Logan Town, all of those places, all slum.
So I want you to address Eric. Eric is coming. I don't want to be the first to go. But Eric says illiteracy, poverty, traumatized. You know what? Let me just show it so people can see it. Illiteracy, poverty, traumatized, political afflictions. I don't know whether he means affiliations. Religious sensitivity, greed, incompetence, Masonic ties, etc., are all pervasive in our country at a high level. It's not a George Weah problem. Rather, it's a foundational problem. We can reset 21st century changes at an automatic approach. Let's resolve, drastically reduce those social vices listed above through civil education before running for instant transformation. Part of the
Let me tell you something.
Wait 1 second. Part of the reason things are turning around is the fact, what's turning around? Am I missing something? Eh? What's turning around? Eric, tell her what's turning around. For somebody on sick bed, you can write, but maybe you can talk. But no, I mean, I don't know what Eric is thinking. Yes, when we were in the CDC, those were the foundational problems we complain about. And those problems are inherited by governments.
So yes. So when you talk about illiteracy, poverty, tribal ties, political affiliations, religious sensitivity, greed, incompetence, all of those things are the things that lead to government not functioning, especially in the absence of systems. Okay? What we are saying is, and what you are saying is, let's not jump to the 21st century. Let me explain something to you, old man. You're in the 21st century, whether you like it or not.
Bottom line.
You are there. Whether you want to jump, you can be dragged kicking and screaming, or you'll be left behind. But Eric, let me tell you how naive your own proposition is. Liberia and Rwanda emerged from civil conflict the same year.
Same time.
The Rwandans killed 1 million people in a matter of months. We lost 250,000 people.
Are they not landlocked?
Okay, Rwanda is landlocked. Tell me what it is about Rwanda that in the same period of time, they have been able to overcome the same tribalism that led to them killing 1 million of their citizens.
Because they got political will. They got will.
Okay.
They are able to say.
But you are telling me that we can't ever overcome this in Liberia. Look at Sierra Leone, right next door. They emerged from civil conflict the same time we did.
And now people from Liberia are going to Leone for vacation, George. People
for vacation, they're driving to Freetown for the weekend. So at what point, Eric, do you realize that we are falling behind? Not because it's not possible. We are falling behind simply because we're not doing the things we need to do to keep up.
And people like Eric, who's supposed to be somebody who's futurist and thinking progressively, is saying, oh, we can do it. Your government being in power for 5 years. Tell me how they have moved the needle against everything you listed. In 5 years, what has been their accomplishments across all those challenges you listed? And even if you want to forget about actual improvement, tell me what programs have been set up specifically to target those different issues and challenges.
Today, Eric, the government of Liberia cannot tell you how many students you have in school. Why?
System, no system.
Well, why can't they tell us? Is this rocket science? It's not. But it's people like you who we encounter every time we talk about the future of Liberia. With you telling us that we can't just jump into the 21st century. Boss man, we are now 23 years into the 21st century. What time do you expect to get to the 21st century? When?
So
your country has cell phones. Let me give you an example, Eric. The ACE cable for internet arrived in Liberia.
There you go.
The same time the internet cable arrived in Rwanda. You know what Rwanda did? They spent $91 million. And they said, the number one thing we got to do to move our country forward is we got to build this cable infrastructure.
Yeah.
Here we are almost 15 years since the ACE cable came to Liberia. We haven't built out the infrastructure in the country yet.
And you
know what that means? It means that if Toyota wants to manufacture vehicles in Rwanda, there is an information infrastructure that can transmit data reliably between Kigali and Tokyo or wherever the Toyota plant is. And this is what you guys don't understand. They are manufacturing cars in Ghana. Do you know that? You don't realize how far behind you are. And you're telling me about not wanting to get to the 21st century? We shouldn't hurry into the The 21st century is almost 25% over. Do you understand that?
I didn't catch that. Could you try again?
Is that Siri talking to you?
That's Siri. Yeah, Siri, he's crazy.
No, but George, seriously, okay, so we gotta move on from Eric, right? Because we nearly time is up, but we gotta address Jaja's question on the elections, and this is something we've kind of talked about before, Jaja, in terms of this whole election system and how it needs a complete overhaul. Just like the country, our election system needs an overhaul. So his question here for the first one talks about he would like to hear your point of view on how we safeguard our election ballots from duplications. And I personally, I don't think it's really duplication. Maybe we need to be looking at our election data rule to see where the duplications are there.
So here's what the law says, right? The law says that at a certain time, the National Election Commission needs to make the voter rolls available to the parties for inspection.
Right.
My own position is, as opposed to the parties wasting time trying to deal with the National Election Commission, they should be putting in the infrastructure right now and report the election data on the day of the election.
Oh, because I agree, but you can't leave that part of the data. I believe they need to look at that as well. They need to make that.
Yeah, but let me tell you what the NEC did the last time. What they did was they gave them where they could give them a data file.
Mm-hmm.
They gave them a PDF.
But it's supposed to give it electronic.
But no. But hold on now. So giving them a PDF qualifies as electronic.
Or you know what I mean when I say electronic, not a physical, solid electronic file.
Yes, what we're talking about,
George, though, that's now a big deal because there's so many tools right now that can extract stuff from a PDF.
Correct. So my point is, we need to be ready.
No, I agree with you.
We need to be ready. Unfortunately, this is the great misfortune of Liberia. There are certain core functions that all the parties should be able to agree on, irrespective of their disagreement as to who is going to represent them. The core function is that the election must be conducted in a manner that is transparent, that is free, and that is fair. And all of those issues that fall under transparency, free and fair, they should be able to work together towards them, because let's say you're UP and you believe you're going to win this election. It's still important to you that the election is conducted freely and fairly.
No question.
If you're ANC, it's still important to you that the election is conducted freely and fairly.
Because you want to know where your real stuff is.
Because you disagree with ANC, you say, we're not just going to be involved. Okay, we're not going to pay attention to this.
Well, and the election's not at one level. The election also at a representative level, the senatorial level.
Exactly.
You may have people at that level who could be affected if your oversight of the entire process is not clear. But this whole thing about duplicate ballots, I think is about the parties being with the National Elections Commission from the time they start discussing anything related to these elections. Who can produce those ballots? When are they going to produce those ballots? When they submit the order? When the shipment arrives? Who takes inventory? The political parties need to be like lock and step with the National Election Commission on
because they are the principal stakeholders.
Yes, they are. And if they can't,
but instead, the NEC sees them as adversaries, when the job of the NEC is to facilitate their participation.
The NEC people can feel that they're working for the incumbent, not
correct.
And they are integrity institutions. Sometimes they don't realize that they should be an independent integrity institution that operates in the best interest of the country to ensure that their work does not affect the peace and security of our country. But sometimes they
Is
don't
the
see
chairman of the NEC a tenured position?
Yes.
So
So even the people thinking only that 6 year or 9 year, no, they want to ensure that when that year end, they will get the next appointment. So that's why they do what they do. You know, it's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate. But Josh, it's 2:20. I think we'll be here for an hour and change.
Yeah, this is time for me to bounce.
We got, I got a call later. You got a call later, and then I got to go to 1 or 2 sites because we're still here until 11 o'clock tonight. So. Any closing statement from you? Anything you want to say special?
No, we do it next week, but next week you will be gone anyway. So
no, next week I will be in France, so I will still be able to do the show. So
all right, so
I'm just trying for us to be consistent because hopefully very soon we'll be on the radio. And
have you tightened up your communications for Europe?
For Europe?
Yeah, or are you going to be using roaming and all that stuff?
I was using roaming here. No, in Europe, most likely I'll be using the virtual SIM, and then probably get a SIM card there.
Okay. All right. Okay, folks, we'll see y'all next week.
Next week, folks. Thank you for watching. We appreciate you. Share the link if you can. We'll also share it from YouTube. We'll share the YouTube link. Thank you. Have a wonderful hump day and rest of the week.